It's time for Answers Partyline today for your Thursday, May the 26th, 2016. Answers Partyline is brought to you by Wimmer Opticians of St. Cloud, also brought to you by Atlas Family Chiropractic of Wade Park. In the studio with me, it's the Dirt Boys. Dennis Fuchs, Administrator with the Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Good morning.
And good morning. And Rick Berscheid, he is the District Conservationist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. Rick and Dennis, what's been going on?
Well, we just completed our local work group meeting last week. We had our SWCD board meeting, and in the afternoon at 1:30, we pulled together some ways to help us prioritize our workload with the USDA programs. And so this is the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, Conservation Stewardship Program, and even CRP and related programs. So we didn't have a lot of people attend, but we did get some comments from Minnesota Milk and a few other concerned farmers and partners, and we collected those. And then with Rick's guidance, we've been taking this to help prioritize the projects that come in our office. As you know, Stearns County is one of the major livestock entities in the state of Minnesota with a tremendous workload and a lot of good farmers out there. So we want to help the farmers in need the most and try to help everybody too. So how do you do that? And Rick, you want to talk a little bit about how we kind of came up with some prioritization with our local work group?
Yeah, definitely. So what we came up with is we're going to focus on this upcoming year on livestock production, producers and operations, and our second resource concern that we're going to focus on is soil erosion, followed by water quality. And within the county, we have a lot more workload than we have staff hours. So we realize that livestock production is our main resource concern, but to help to address all the resource concerns across the county, we're going to prioritize that resource concern, and then after we do X amount of projects, we are going to shift our focus on trying to do some more projects with soil erosion and water quality.
And one of the other things that we talked about at our local work group meeting is just the funding rate for projects. The ag economy was doing really good, 2007, 8, up to a few years ago. And the payment rates were kind of going down as the ag economy was really clicking. But now we're finding out that with the dairy prices, corn prices, soybean prices, and in general, the whole ag economy is really bottomed out. We got a lot of farmers that have resource concerns but cannot afford to move forward with the conservation practices to address their resource concerns. And we put in a recommendation to increase those rates. And NRCS has, along with the state of Minnesota, has a balancing act. They want to help as many people as possible and stretch those taxpayer dollars as far as possible, but still make sure that we get to the right people to assist. So we're hoping that, because the ag economy is really flat right now, if we're going to get farmers to participate in implementing some conservation practices, water and sediment basins, grass waterways, animal waste management systems, that they increase that payment rate. And what is the payment rate cutoff right now, like for the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, Rick?
For our general sign-up, the way we set our rates are we're in a lake state region, so with combination of a couple other states, we set our the average cost to install a particular practice, and then each state can set their percentage of what they're going to pay on that average cost. And this last year, it was set for our general EQIP sign-up to be 50% and 65% for the historically underserved participants.
Okay.
What are you asking for an increase then? By how much or approximately? What are you hoping for?
Well, we'd like to see it go up a little bit to like 60 and 75%.
Okay.
Traditionally, the Stearns SWCD board has tried to, help our federal dollars and stretch those farther with state funds. But since 2010, the state of Minnesota had the open lot agreement where all of the feedlots had approximately 10 years to get fixed. And all of the feedlot runoff problems were supposed to be addressed by 2010. What we're discovering is there's still folks out there that have some feedlot runoff concerns, or they have more manure than they can handle and not a suitable place to temporarily store it, and they'd like to have a stacking slab, or they'd just like to have assistance in developing a comprehensive nutrient management plan. So those folks are now coming to us, and they're finding out, they've heard in the past 75%, and now it's closer to 50%, and there is no state funds to help bring that up to 75%. So it's difficult right now to get folks the up to 75% payment rate for the eligible conservation practices. We're not putting up buildings. This would be the earth and manure storage facility, the agitation ramp, the loading ramp, the safety fence around it. Those components are what we typically help cost share.
So when you ask these increases, are you saying, okay, here's a range we would like. Can you somehow fit in that range, or is it all for all or nothing when you ask these, when you request that increase?
Well, the way it works is each county gets to hold their local work group meeting, and we can get input from our local producers and other organizations in the county. And then we submit our recommendations to our state technical committee, and they're the ones that make the decision for the state. So it is kind of all or nothing. It's based on a state decision.
And the state technical committee includes all kinds of different organizations: Minnesota Milk, Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, corn growers, Minnesota Rural Water Association, Pheasants Forever. It's a very diverse mix of folks that try to help come up with a very comprehensive decision on how to manage these funds.
And in the past, we've had quite a few more applications than dollars, so they lowered the rate to try to spread that money around a little bit more. And this last year, I believe we also had more applications than dollars. So that's another thing, like Dennis discussed already, is that balancing act to make sure that we're able to help as many folks as we can.
But if they see more applications, they're more prone to give you that increase.
Yeah. Well,
Not technically.
Yeah.
It all depends.
It's a
You just
balancing
don't
act.
know.
We just don't know. We can submit our recommendations and what we're seeing within our county to the state tech committee, and we'll go from there. We'll find out here in the fall what the decision is.
Yeah, and ultimately Congress will be making a decision on how many dollars they set aside for USDA programs, and we work with our National Association of Conservation Districts to make sure that is fully funded to the max, because we see the need here in Stearns County, and we just try to bring those dollars back here to address resource concerns.
Perfect. We'll visit more with Dennis and Rick here coming up after our news break. It's 9:30. More Partyline coming up after our news and information. Answers Partyline continues here on Chasm Radio, visiting with Dennis Fuchs from SWCD, Rick Berscheid from NRCS. You had a conservation practices tour.
Yes, you are right.
You told me you had one.
Yes.
And I want to know more.
Okay, well, here we go, Brad. Hang on. Wednesday, June 15th, we're going to have a Conservation Practices Tour 2016. And what we're going to be doing is viewing practices that our residents have implemented to stabilize stream banks, control gully and side hill erosion, filter urban runoff, increase forage production on grazing lands, contain feedlot runoff, and improve manure handling systems. This is going to happen on Wednesday, June 15th. And if you'd like to go, you should give our office a call. And I'm going to give this number a couple times because you got to RSVP because we got a free lunch. And we'll be providing that with the support of AgStar. And our telephone number is 320-251-7800. And our office is extension 3. So once again, 251-7800, extension 3. And what we're going to be doing is loading a bus at the Stearns County Service Center in Waite Park. This is not the USDA Service Center. This is the county building out by Fleet Farm on that road there. They got a licensing facility. A lot of you know where it is. Just might cause some confusion because they call it the Stearns County Service Center. It's not the USDA Service Center. So it's on County Highway 138. West of Mills Fleet Farm, and we're going to leave at 8:30 a.m. sharp. And we hope to be back there about 4:45. And once again, you should RSVP by June 8th. And we're going to have a variety of conservation practices that we have installed here in Stearns County, including stream bank erosion control, stormwater infiltration features, strip till, no-till, water and sediment control basins, water control impoundment structures, grass waterways, diversions, perennial cover through Conservation Reserve Program, and prescribed grazing. Oh, and let's not forget the big item here in Stearns County, animal waste control facilities, including manure storage and vegetative filter strips. So once again, this is going to be Wednesday, June 15th. We're going to be taking off from the Stearns County Service Center at 8:30. That's just west of Mills Fleet Farm. And we hope to have you back by 4:45. And once again, that is not the USDA Service Center where you come in to do your acre report with FSA or work with our offices. So it's over there west of Fleet Farm. And you should RSVP by June 8th. And June 8th is what day of the week?
June 8th is Wednesday.
Wednesday. So we give you a full week to get RSVP'd. And then that'll give us a head count for the free lunch, and we'll have refreshments also, and we'll have a nice air-conditioned bus to be doing the tour. I know Brad Wenz has been working very hard on this conservation tour. And the other thing, we're going to have the actual landowners talk about the projects they have installed on their property. And it's a great way to hear from them directly instead of from me going rah, 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 SWCD. It's actually the landowner talking about how it was working with Rick's office, my office, and how we got the project done. So it's going to, and then if you got questions on what it costs or, the permits, the landowner will help answer those questions too.
You're going to see all those examples in one day, or some of those have multiple?
Nope. Some of the sites have multiple conservation practices installed, and some are going to be on the bus, off the bus. So we'll go and take a look at it, visit with the landowner, and jump back on the bus and hit the next one.
Okay.
So we're hoping we get a beautiful day on Wednesday, June 15th. And once again, if you're interested, please RSVP by giving our office a call at 320-251-7800. Extension 3, and do that by June 8th. I was looking at Facebook, and I noticed Southwest Minnesota got pounded again with some of these thunderstorms coming through where they got a couple inches of rain in an hour. And this is a tour where you can learn how to buckle down your soil and save your soil from those storm events, which are going to hit Stearns County sooner or later. And maybe they did last night. I just heard a severe thunderstorm warning for Sauk Center area last night. I haven't heard the reports. Brad, have you heard any reports?
I haven't heard myself, so no.
Okay. So I'm just curious if there was some intense rainfall and soil loss again. These are conservation practices that help protect our soil, improve soil health, so that we can weather these storms in the future. So, yeah, really, Brad Wenz has done a wonderful job of getting some really great landowners lined up. Wednesday, June 15th, our Conservation Practices Tour. Please RSVP by June 8th by calling our office at 320-251-7800, extension 3.
Very good.
All right. Hey, I don't want to do all the talking because, my board of supervisors always give me a hard time, It'd sure be nice if Rick would give him a chance to talk once in a while. So I'm just going to let him talk about one of the things that we also got going on in our office. Is that all right, Brad?
That's very kind of you, Dennis. Very kind.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. I would like to talk a little bit about one of our many initiatives that we have through the NRCS office. This one I'm going to focus on is called the Mississippi River Basin Healthy Watershed Initiative. That's a mouthful. Wow. So for short, and we like our acronym, so we call it MERBY. And what it is it's an outreach program across 13 states where we're focusing on trying to improve water quality, enhance wildlife habitat, and certain watersheds are selected through the Mississippi River Basin. And within the county, we have two Huck 12, which are smaller watersheds that are selected for this initiative area. They are part of the southern part of the county. One is the Long Lake watershed, and right adjacent to it is the Cedar Island Lake Sauk River watershed. And we just talked a little bit about our local work group meeting and how we are trying to look at potentially raising our rates for installing these conservation practices. But throughout the initiative, they already have higher rates to install these conservation practices that Dennis just talked about to try to protect the soil quality, water quality, soil erosion. And if you are within these small areas, we encourage you to stop by the office here and discuss the potential options that we have to help install conservation practices on your property.
All right. Hey, Brad, can I talk a little bit about the buffer program?
You have my permission.
All right. Thanks, Brad. We've been getting a lot of landowners coming in our office to find out what kind of buffers are required on their property. And we do have a link on the SWCD website. And if you just, I'm not going to give you that actual website. Just Google Stearns County Soil and Water, and it'll pop up as one of the first things from Google or any search engine. And then look on the right side, and it'll have a little icon saying a DNR buffer map. You click that, and it'll be the whole state of Minnesota. And you can zoom right into Stearns County and zoom into your farm, and it'll show you if you need a 16.5-foot buffer or a 50-foot buffer. And what we're finding out is a lot of the areas out there that people were thinking were a ditch that would require 16.5 feet actually are part of the public waters inventory and not treated as a ditch. So that requires a 50-foot buffer. And we've been putting in a lot of comments that we feel that should be treated as a ditch. Now, if you have a public waters inventory stream that's part of a judicial ditch, like Getchell and portions, they're going to actually treat that as a ditch if it's been straightened out. So if Getchell, using that as an example, has been straightened out and is acting more like a ditch than a stream, then it's going to require a 16.5-foot buffer alongside that. Now, if it starts meandering again, they're going to treat it like a stream, which is going to require a 50-foot average buffer with a minimum of 30 feet. So a lot of questions out there about this, and I think we're going to have an opportunity to reduce that buffer width on some of these public water inventory streams that have been straightened out by using alternative ag practices. We don't know what those are yet. The Board of Water and Soil Resources and others are helping to define what those alternative ag practices are. Now remember, this is a water quality program, so if you do reduced tillage or cover crops, that's going to allow you to reduce that buffer width to a certain minimum. And we don't know what that certain minimum is, but we're hoping like on a public waters inventory stream that's been straightened out 50 to 100 years ago and has been functioned more of as a ditch than a stream, that will be able to drop that down to 16.5 feet. If there are some people that would like to put these in the continuous CRP, we do have programs available to help with that. But you really need to take a look at your farm and take a look. And if you do have comments, please send those comments to our office. We've got 3 folks in our office that are going to help get all of this information entered into the DNR database. And that's Ben Ruley, Kevin Roth, and Jason Selvog. All of those folks are. And we're going to try to get, in case you don't have a computer or access to these maps at home, and you don't have any grandkids with a tablet or an iPad where they can fire that up for you, then come into our office and we'll help you. We're actually we got a staff meeting after the show today, and we're going to be talking about putting something right at the front counter, a monitor, a computer, so that we can help farmers take a look at what's required on their farm. And like I said, we can reduce these buffer widths with alternative ag practices. Those alternative ag practices will probably be coming out later this summer. The DNR will be giving us the map hopefully sometime in July. That'll be the official buffer map, and it'll be continuously improved over time. So if you do have comments, we have to submit those as the Soil Water Conservation District. So if you send them to us, we'll work on using the official DNR buffer database comment website, and we'll get them in. And I've done several of them. And just looking at my parents' farm, they did not require any ditches. You go across the road, and it was required. So, and that was a 50-foot on both sides of that, what I thought was a ditch. So it is not a ditch. According to the DNR, it's part of the public waters inventory, a stream that was straightened out, but they still put it as part of their buffer requirement. So just a reminder to get those comments, look at your farm. We'll submit and share those with us. And like I said, we can also reduce those buffer widths with alternative ag practices. And as soon as we get that information, we'll start sharing that information with you. These buffers on public waters need to be installed next year on the public waters. Ditches, the judicial ditches, those have another year. They have until 2018 to get those installed. So once we identify the alternative ag practices, say you reduce tillage alongside some of these that required a 50-foot buffer, that might be adequate. So as soon as we get this information, and to me, talking about the buffers, until we get that alternative ag practice, it's really tough to let you know everything, but you should at least look at your farm to see if you've got buffer requirements, and we're here to help. Any questions? Any calls?
Not so far.
Okay, good.
You must be doing a good job.
Yeah, all right. All right, what else are we going to talk about? Did you want to talk about cropland conservation practices for protecting groundwater?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that a little bit. There's a new pamphlet that just came out. It was in a good working group here with multiple agencies took part of it. It was with the USDA, Minnesota Rural Water Association, the University of Minnesota Extension, Minnesota Department of Health, and Minnesota Department of Agriculture. They came out with this pamphlet called Farmers Grow Our Food and Protect Our Water. It just lists out several different conservation practices that we can do to protect our groundwater. Some of these practices are nutrient management, irrigation water management, taking credit for nitrogen in our irrigation water, cover crops, conservation crop rotations, conservation buffers, etc. I encourage you, if next time you're in our office, we have some of these pamphlets right outside our door, just grab one and take a look at it. It's a pretty nice brochure.
All right. What else you got, Dennis?
Well, I just want to, because I was out in the field last week with Mark Lefebvre, and we had 5 farmers certified through the Minnesota Ag Water Quality Certification Program, and we noticed that a lot of farmers were getting alfalfa harvested, making haylage, and for a good reason. It's been wet all week, and we got a nice day today, and then rain in the forecast for the next several days. But that reminded me that a lot of folks are going to be looking at their roadside ditches, and they're going to be cutting that. And I wanted to share some information from the DNR on the waiting as long as possible on that. People who own or manage land along Minnesota roads and highways are urged to delay roadside mowing until the beginning of August, according to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Leaving roadside vegetation undisturbed help preserve thousands of acres of nesting and chick-rearing habitat in southern and western Minnesota. A quarter to a third of all pheasants in the state are hatched in roadsides. This year, pheasants will be hatching mostly in early to mid-June. Chicks need at least 3 weeks to have any chance of escape from mowers. While mowing can delay or prevent nesting, so can other disturbances including burning, tilling, grazing, and spraying herbicides. Protecting roadside habitat in the summer months truly does influence the abundance of local wildlife populations, according to the DNR. These habitat areas are especially critical in intensively row crop regions where undisturbed grassland habitat can be sparse. At sites where noxious weeds are a problem, the DNR recommends that landowners use spot mowing or spraying for treatment. Any other mowing should be limited to a narrow strip adjacent to the mailbox or driveway to reduce likelihood of disturbing nest or brood. I'll share that story some other time. Pheasant hens will make from 1 to 4 attempts at nesting during the season, but will only hatch 1 brood per year. The majority of nests hatch by mid-June, but up to 40% of re-nesting attempts hatch throughout July, stretching out the nesting season and highlighting the importance of delayed mowing. By August 1st, the reproductive season is over for most pheasants, with the exception of a few late re-nesting attempts. A nesting hen lays eggs at a rate of about 1 per day. Early season nests contain an average of 10 to 12 eggs, but each re-nesting attempt contains fewer eggs. The incubation period is 23 to 28 days and starts after all the eggs have been laid. The hens remain very faithful to the nest, leaving only briefly to feed, and is therefore also vulnerable to mowing during this time. There's wide-ranging benefits of roadside habitat. Roadsides also provide important habitat for monarchs, mallards, teal, partridge, grassland songbirds, native pollinators, honeybees, and frogs and turtles. Roadsides with native wildflowers benefit native bees. Research has shown that the width of roadside and the proximity to traffic does not matter to bees. Minnesota beekeepers place a high value on roadside wildflowers. Loss of habitat is a crucial cause of the decline in wild bees, honeybees, and other pollinators such as monarch butterflies. So that's just a reminder, if you can delay that mowing of your roadside ditch until as late as possible, that'd be beneficial. The later, the better. But I also understand if you're using that for your livestock, the forage quality decreases with time. So try to find that balance out there to still provide quality livestock feed and provide some habitat for wildlife.
I think somebody had a question earlier. We had a DNR conservation officer in studio with us, but I think the question was, when does the prescribed burning necessity trump what you just described? I mean,
it's a good question. Maybe Rick has got an answer, right?
That's a very good question. It all depends on, if you're in a program or not. Sometimes there's other restrictions on when you can and can't burn if it's within the nesting season. But if you have a site that's very difficult to get to and you got to burn during the nesting season, it's not recommended that you do that. However, we don't want that habitat to be lost and be growing up into trees, and we lose that herbaceous cover of the grasses and the forbs that we want. So, it's one of those deals where you try to do the best you can. So,
yeah, and they don't recommend typically burning every year. Typically, it's every 3 to 4 years. And if you time that right earlier in the season, the chance of them starting to nest maybe isn't as great. And then if it is disturbed, they can re-nest and maybe have a few less eggs, but still have a successful hatch.
Okay. Listener wants to know, how come the county is spraying for weeds already in ditches in June when you are asking not to cut until August?
The county has a noxious weed program, and there's several species out there that are sprouting up, and they cause lots of problems. One of them is wild parsnip, and we're working with the Stearns County weed inspector and actually received from some funds from the state of Minnesota to help address these noxious weeds. And one of them is wild parsnip, and it kind of looks like dill when it's mature. And if you walk through that and rub it on your skin and expose yourself to sun, you can have some massive blisters from this plant. So we're really working with the county to help control that before it starts spreading. And the best time to spray it is early in the season, before it goes to seed. So that's part of the reason why we're seeing the county out there taking care of some of these weed problems.
Dennis, put on those headphones really quick here. We've got a phone call to address. Hi, you're in Chasm Radio. What's your question for our guests?
I'm wondering if there would be cost share assistance available for updating a manure system.
Yeah, we can take that question.
Okay, yeah, they'll answer it for you on the air here.
Yeah,
Thank you. You bet.
I was just going to say, one of the first things we'd do is come out and take a look at your farm and take a look at the resource concern. We also would be looking at your fields and cropland to make sure that we don't have gullies, and we also have all of your soil loss managed also. Yes, there's the continuous sign-up with Rick's program, the EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And we also have a few state cost share funds, not very much, but we usually work with the federal programs and then try to leverage any state program dollars. So my recommendation is come into the office and sign up, and we'll work you through the system.
Right. So it's a continuous sign-up. So we're already looking ahead to next year's sign-up deadline. So anyone that applied from our last sign-up until that deadline, which is August 19th, we'll have a chance to take a look at your project and prepare for next year's sign-up, which this last year we found out of all the applications when they got approved was in late April. So you kind of got to be thinking ahead if you're wanting to do something. Come on into the office now so we can get out there, take a look at the site visit, discuss with you on the potential alternatives that you have and what you're wanting to do for your operation. And then throughout this winter and this fall, we can get out and do some surveying, take a look at what your potential options are. And then if it's something you want to do, then we can try to get you in a program to get some financial assistance to actually implement the project.
We typically do between 10 to 20 animal waste management systems a year, and our slate of projects for this year are filled. So if you were thinking you were hoping to get it done this year, that'd be impossible. But like Rick said, start working with us now and looking forward next year or the following year to implement the project.
Again, how can we find you and get a hold of you?
We're at 251-7800, extension 3. Google Stearns County Soil and Water to get to our website. Or we're located at Marketplace Mall in Wade Park, Minnesota, right by Pizza Ranch, or the new Dick's Sporting Goods. And then we also got our conservation tour.
Sure.
Please RSVP by June 8th by calling us at 251-7800, extension 3, for the Wednesday, June 15 Conservation Practices Tour.
Wonderful. Dennis Fuchs, SWCD, Rick Berscheid, NRCS. That's Partyline for this morning. We've got news coming up. It's Chasm Radio.